All right. We are live. I hope everybody is doing just fantastic today. Sorry, I've been running around all day. I am technically 1 minute late, and I do apologize to everybody in the chat right now. I am horribly sorry. Let me just go ahead and tell everybody that I am now live, and we will get started. Live now. Ba-boom. Nice. Hopefully everybody is doing good today. Please tell me where you're from, guys. I love to hear it. We have an absolute truckload to talk about today, so we're going to get into it here in just a second. Let me just go ahead and retweet my live stream on Twitter, and we will get into it. All right. Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody is having a fantastic day. Let's see here. We have hello from Slovenia. Greetings from Hungary. Hi from Paris. Hello from North Koreans in Kursk. Doubt it. Greetings from California, Seattle, Serbia. Audio delayed. No. Finland, Bulgaria, Germany, Serbia, mofos, Nigeria. Let's see here. Cyprus. That's awesome. Albania. That's sweet. Sweden, Turkey, Lviv, Ghana, Oxford, Slovenia, Norway. God, that's awesome, guys. I'm glad my Euro bros are in here too. It's nice to have a time where you guys get to be in here as well. Like the later stream is always Ameribros, and then we got the Euro bros in here. So Alabama, Oregon. All right, guys. Welcome in. Sorry. This is episode 116 of the Kalibrated live show. I am, of course, your only host, Scott. Today's episode is titled Biden's Final Move. We will be discussing the recent green lighting of Western long-range strike systems such as ATACMS inside of Russian territory to assist the Ukrainians inside of Kursk. We will be discussing the implications, both militarily and geopolitically. We have a ton of updates to go over, which we always start with the updates. I like to get the updates out of the way, so if people watch these live streams, they can get in, get out, and then they're done in the first 30 minutes if all they care about is the updates. I have a couple articles I want to talk about, and I have some very, very, very exciting big guests coming on in the near future. So we got that coming. Before we get started, I would like to remind everybody that if you would like to see more of my content, find out when my live streams are, be updated constantly, you can go follow me on my Telegram and my Twitter. You can find those links in the description of the YouTube video. If you are watching on Twitter, you can head over to my YouTube channel. It is just Kalibrated with a K. And follow me there. If you are not subscribed, please, everybody subscribe. It's the easiest way you can support me. Leave that like if you so choose, if you think that this live stream was satisfactory. And last but not least, guys, I wanted to thank you all so much for your support over on my Patreon. Last week, I uploaded a new bro chat on there. Like I said, I am switching my Patreon from the demonetized series. I might still do a couple of those here and there, but I was just not really enjoying that anymore, and it wasn't really good content, so I stopped. I'm going to be doing a lot of my interviews and less, I guess I would say, Ukraine-oriented content on that on Patreon. So my bro chat is over there with Zaganel and Von Klausowitz, and I just uploaded a new video as this live stream started, and that is a interview with AMK Mapping, a pro-Ukrainian account who does a fantastic job mapping this conflict. A very good pro-Ukrainian account, very neutral. So go over and check out that interview. I'll probably be doing weekly updates with him now that things are starting to spiral for Ukraine. It's interesting to get a different take on things. All right. Thank you for listening to my advertisements for 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and just jump right in, shall we? We have so many updates to talk about. Let's see where we're going to start. Let's zoom out here. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so I'm going to start in the Kursk region because we do have an update. And like I say, my map is not necessarily, my map now is actually much more accurate to what the real situation is. There had been a lot of Ukrainian counterattacks in this area right here, up under Kremoya. I'm sorry, hold on. Let me do this so you guys can see a little bit better here. There you go. Kremeno right here, and Ogolvka. There was a Ukrainian pocket of troops right here. If you go over to my Telegram or Twitter, or you're already following me there, you will see a FPV. You might have seen an FPV video of probably 50 Ukrainian troops in a mass concentration being struck by an FPV that is in this forested area right around here somewhere, one of these little forest plantations. And word was reportedly that the Ukrainians had counterattacked in this area and sort of have gotten themselves into a salient. And that strike, that FPV strike on that concentration of troops, was the encirclement, the Ukrainians trying to move about in this area. This has now been cleared, and the Kursk map now is much more accurate to the real situation. I will likely now begin updating my Kursk map more closely and watching what's happening in the region more actively, okay? Somebody said stop shouting. Am I shouting? Am I loud? If I'm too loud, let me know, guys. I didn't change anything. It doesn't say that I'm too loud. I think you're lying. All right. So again, this is just the only thing that this is doing now is potentially creating an opportunity for negotiate, like a position to negotiate from a chip in the coffer for your negotiations. But it doesn't really make sense because this is just costing Ukraine right now. It's just an open wound. So I really don't understand the whole negotiating aspect of it. Also, with the recent green light on Western weapons, I don't really see any negotiations happening either way. So this makes no sense. This is just a big crinky now. A lot of very, very high quality, what is remaining of Ukraine's high quality troops are just being wasted in this area. It makes no sense. But yeah, that's the overall situation there. No major updates in the Kharkov region, but I'm sorry, there are major updates in the Kharkov region, but not in the Vovchansk area right here in the north. Over here in Kupiansk, we have a major update, guys. Right here in the center of Kupiansk, Russian forces achieved a breakthrough into the industrial facilities of the eastern portion of Kupiansk. If you guys remember, Kupiansk is divided by the Oskil River, right here, west and east. The eastern part of the city is now likely, at least a majority of it, is under Russian control. That means that this logistics line that the Ukrainians are relying on for supply in this whole area has now been cut. The only remaining options for the Ukrainians is basically to walk through these fields and try to cross the Oskil River on pontoon crossings in this area if they exist. But what we're looking at right now is a tactical encirclement of this entire bridgehead. The Ukrainians sat too long, and now they have overstayed their welcome. They're going to be routed out of this pocket, and I talked about it for I talked about it time and time again. I said that the Ukrainians should move all of these troops in this pocket and in the northern part of this pocket down to about where the Kharkiv, Donetsk oblasts separate. All of these Ukrainian troops could have been pulled out of here. They could have made the Oskil River the defensive line and just pulled back to this half. Now, what the Ukrainians are dealing with is an urban battle here, which they're losing, a pocket that has now formed, and meanwhile, the South is still in free fall. So the situation is getting so complex and unmanageable for the AFU, you're going to start to see cities just falling. It's no longer going to be villages. Now you're going to start to see cities fall. Cities like Toretsk, cities like Kupiansk, cities like Chasiv Yar, cities like Kuklove. The same speed that the Russians are now taking villages with, soon they will begin taking cities with that same vigor. So just prepare yourselves. Things are going to start picking up and increasing in speed tremendously, especially as the ground begins to freeze heading into the winter months. Remember, guys, if you have any questions, you can always throw them up in chat. I come back and I look sometimes. But if you want your questions answered live on stream and also you wish to support me, you can ask those questions through super chats. And I always put those up on the screen. I always answer them to the best of my ability. So that is always an option for you guys. All right. But just taking a closer look here in Kupiansk, you can see that a majority of what I believe is a sugar factory, I think that that's what this is, has been captured. The far eastern end of it, and it is now being reported that the entirety of the industrial area, along with the hospital and the stadium in this area, have also all been captured, meaning that Kupiansk, at least the eastern portion of it, is now almost entirely under Russian control. And as I said, this pocket is now a tactical encirclement. Really, really bad situation. And, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but specifically, this northern pocket I've been talking about for about 2 months now that the Ukrainians had to get out. They didn't. And now the exact thing that we talked about is happening. They are now stuck and they will be forced to retreat through these fields. And that is just going to result in higher casualties and a worse defensive position across the river. All right. Moving down to the Seversk area, a small Russian advance here in the direction of Fyodorivka, and there is some more movement in this general area. I do believe that the Russians have advanced south of the Terkon here in Bilohorivka. However, I don't have an exact geolocation for that, so I'm not going to update the map right now. But this forested area right here is crucial for the Russians to capture. This is where Ukraine has its strong fortifications. So the reason why they're able to hold this so well is because of the massive fortification in this area. All right. Moving down to Chasiv Yar. You can see here that the Russians have advanced in the center of Chasiv Yar, and it is being reported that the Russians have gained a foothold inside of they call it the fireproof plant. I don't know if it's like a brick factory. I don't know what exactly this industrial facility is. Whatever it is, though, it's not in operation, and the Russians have now gained a foothold. And if you remember, this is the very center of Chasiv Yar. I will take us over to the topographical map, and we will talk about that here in a second. Let me see if I can see a question. Wouldn't the winter cause advances to slow down because it's harder to dig in? No. Winter makes advances much easier because the ground is actually, you can maneuver on the ground. It's not mud. You don't get stuck. The foliage is off the trees, so defenders have a much harder time hiding in foliage. Winter is the time for big offensives. It's the time to move. And in terms of digging in, usually now the Russians don't really have to physically dig trenches. They're either capturing Ukrainian defensive positions and then utilizing those as they advance, or moving into city areas. So, all right. But I was going to take us over to the topographical map, so I'll do that right now. Oops, not in it yet. There we go. Okay, so Bakhmut, Chasiv Yar. Here you can see that this is the industrial facility right here. So the Russians are now very clearly on the dominant high ground in all of Donetsk, actually. It's not just the dominant high ground in Chasiv Yar. This is the dominant high ground that overlooks all of the cities here in this valley. Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Duskivka, Konstantinivka right here. So the Russians are now on the high ground, and especially on a much more small tactical level, they are on the the high ground in the area. So the Russians have now neutralized the Ukrainian advantage of having the high ground as they were pushing through, pushing through this whole area. As they were coming across the canal, the Ukrainians were really enjoying these heights right here and able to direct fire down into this area. The Russians have now pushed through that, are into the center of Chasiv Yar, and Chasiv Yar's days are now numbered, right? So this is an area that the Ukrainians cannot lose. They cannot afford to lose Chasiv Yar. It is going to create so many strategic issues for them in the eastern part of the country. If they lose Chasiv Yar, Russian forces will begin operations along this canal. Once this canal is captured, you can see where the high ground leads right here. They will begin operations into Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Turskivka, and Konstantinivka. So this is vitally important. There's a reason why they're holding it as long as they are. And like I said, the Ukrainian army, the AFU, is just getting weaker. Right? They're getting weaker everywhere across the board. They don't have the ability to respond. They don't have the ammunition. They don't have the morale. And you're going to start to see cities like Chasiv Yar falling much, much, much quicker than anybody expects. The Russians are going to start advancing into these areas much quicker than everybody expects. And just from a spectator point of view, the eastern part of the country for the Ukrainians is now basically on the clock. With the progress in the south, the collapse of the south, potential Russian offensives in the Zaporizhzhia region or in the north, the pressure is so immense across the board that they just can't hold everything. They have to make critical decisions, very difficult decisions about what they plan to do. He wants some airtime. So that's what's going on in Chasiv Yar. I'll take us out of this, back over to the old. As this battle develops, once this central area is captured from the Ukrainians, the rest of the Battle of Chasiv Yar should progress much quicker, as this is the major point of the city. There's not a ton left after that, and the Russians will then branch out into Mykolivka, Chernihiv, and then Stopochki down here. Stopochki being the most important area on the map, as it will compromise all of Toretsk down here to the south. Okay, moving down to Toretsk. Speaking of the devil, Russian forces have just basically leveled the front line between Leonidivka and Toretsk, as well as this. The situation in this part of the city has been clarified. My map is basically perfectly correct. And there were geolocations of Ukrainians here and Russians here and Ukrainians here and Russians here. But we got word that the Russians have again advanced back out after those Ukrainian counterattacks in this sort of gray zone of this lower city. And now the Russians have advanced through these fields as well. And the front is now being directed a lot. Oh, just opened a new tab. Sorry. My map is gone. Sorry, guys. Hold on just a second. So you can see how the whole front line is now like sort of poised to head north. So it's not so much that this is a big pocket now. It's starting to divide into two separate pockets. This will be the lower southern pocket, which the dividing line will be this reservoir as soon as the Russians are able to advance up and cut it off. And then this pocket over here, which is everything west of the canal around Klishchevka, Toretsk, and up into Konstantinivka. So two pockets are now forming here, and with the push into Stopochki, this pocket is going to become a lot like the Nevelsky pocket, sort of, where there's not a lot of structure. And once Krasnohorivka fell, the Ukrainians were eventually forced to retreat from Nevelsky back to the Vovocha line. Do you guys remember how that was happening in like August? And now this entire area is just red? That's pretty crazy, huh? All right, let's see. Got some questions here. When do you think the EU grid interconnectors get taken out? We will talk about that. There was a recent Russian missile strike, a strategic Russian missile strike, and for the first time, European electricity connections were targeted. So we will be talking about this. I mean, Odessa looks pretty dark with the existing strikes. Yeah, Odessa has been getting absolutely hammered. I'll come back to this question, Ray, in just a minute. One thing I like the most about Biden allowing Ukraine to fire missiles is that in Russia now, the Duma, Medvedev are no longer waiting for Putin to answer. They all know that Putin is slow. Putin is. I love you, man. You are just a anti-Putin guy, which is fine, whatever. But he is a politician. He is not a military leader. You have to remember that there are multiple aspects. Putin has to maintain diplomatic relations, the economy, domestic upkeep, as well as the military aspect. It's a juggling act, right? And if you overinvest in the military aspect, it's much harder to juggle all of those different things. Right? If you go in and you just destroy Ukraine, your diplomatic relations with China, India, all of the people who are keeping your economy and your domestic situation very happy end up getting compromised and might not be as supportive of what you're doing and supportive of your economy, and you can force yourself into regime change. So you have to be very careful. It's not moving slow. It's moving I wouldn't say cleverly, but moving in a coordinated and careful manner. All right. Okay. So here in the Pokrovsk direction, we have reactivation of Russian forces, especially in this southern area. Remember, guys, I talked about it, and you're going to see it play out the exact way that I talked about it here. But this pocket is completely exposed in terms of logistics lines and high ground. And the Russians are going to push out along the valley to the north, push out along the valley to the south as soon as this pocket collapses, and will move into this region, thereby compromising the southern flank of Pokrovsk. So just be on the lookout there. I'm going to get rid of this for a second, and we can look at the actual advances here. So Russian forces have advanced outside of Seladove, moving up along the E50 highway here in the direction of Pokrovsk, and have completely captured the villages of Hihorivka and Petrivka, as well as have advanced up to the reservoir or the pond, whatever, in front of Zavote. So a lot of Russian progress here where we have not seen a lot of progress. And this brings them within what would we say here? This is Pokrovsk. They are now within 5 miles of Pokrovsk. So less than 10 kilometers to the city. This is obviously now a frontline city. And the Russians are going to start to look to cut the lines of communication that lead into the city. That includes pushing up for this ring road right here, which I believe we will see, cutting the line of communication from Konstantinivka to Pokrovsk, and then moving along this southern set of villages here, cutting this highway south of Pokrovsk, which ends up leading down to Kokove and Drivka, and then eventually progressing up behind, capturing Koteleni, I don't know, and Hershin up here. So cutting these back roads, the E50 going west, and this other highways coming in, thereby compromising logistics into Pokrovsk and allowing the Russians to begin operations into Minhorod and Pokrovsk itself. Hopefully everybody's doing good. Good point. I did not see that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's you got to remember that if the Russians wanted to end the military conflict tomorrow, they would start sending up strategic aviation every day. They would take out all the bridges that the Ukrainians are using. They would annihilate the tunnels coming in from Europe. They would eliminate all of the power generation. They would eliminate all of the generation facilities that the transfer facilities that allow power to come in from Europe. And then Ukraine would be without power and would crumble in a matter of days. The part that doesn't work with that is that all of the countries who are now openly working with Russia as an alternative to the United States might pull back and recoil at such a change of aggression. And that's sort of the soft hand approach. Was Putin has to maintain the economy. The economy has to survive at least a year and then stabilize. So going in soft, going in light, leaves the door open for negotiations. It saves face with your allies, and it doesn't invoke a horrible reaction from your enemies who are looking to capitalize on every single wrong move you make. So, yeah. Okay. Back to the map. A small advance here south of Yurivka, nothing major, just more progress into this sort of gap right here. We will continue to see progress here until the Russians, I don't know if they'll stop at the Donetsk Oblast or if they will enter Dnipropetrovsk, but I think that they will probably just continue moving at this point. All right, here in the pocket north of Kokove, it's just slowly beginning to close. The Russians are just sort of moving in. Kokove itself, we haven't seen any new progress in the city itself. The Ukrainians did blow this. I don't know if they're still hanging out in here. I don't know what the Ukrainians are doing in the south. They seem very disorganized, minorly confused about the overall situation. And it doesn't look like they're acting as a total unit. Unless the goal is still hold every single inch for as long as possible, because this is looking absolutely miserable at this point. And again, you're talking about the nearest logistics city being 15, 14, 13 miles, 20 kilometers away. So the guys in this pocket in particular are not having a very good time. Speaking of said pocket, Russian forces have advanced in the very rear of the pocket and have forced the Ukrainians out of this fortification right here and have completely captured the village of Antonivka. Again, this pocket is just slowly going to close over time, and it should sort of level out around these two fortifications. The Russians will try to breach into this fortification and then capture this, and then move up into the south of Kokove. But this entire southern front now looks completely different. The entire equation has changed here for the AFU. Defense is incredibly difficult, and the casualties in this area for the AFU are just immense. The casualties going in and out of these pockets, the logistics casualties and everything like that are just incredibly high. And the sooner this closes for the Ukrainians at this point, the better, in my personal opinion. To the south here, south of Vesely High, the Russian forces have just made a general advance, improving the front line. Same over here, where the Russians have advanced out of Yasna Polana, Maximivka, and Trudove, and have just sort of progressed the line closer to Sukiyali and Hehant. How do you even say that? What is this? Why give this a name? Why does this have to have a name that I can't pronounce? Why can't we just call it The Shack? That's wild, dude. That's crazy. Okay. That's Ukraine right there. And the Russian Ministry of Defense will announce that this has been captured, by the way, so be on the lookout. Okay. Down here in the Velika Novosilka direction, we have additional advances outside of Rivnopil. Just basically small tactical advances once the Ukrainians had to retreat from these villages. The Russians have also fully captured Novodrivka and have entered the Donetsk Oblast through the Zaporizhzhia Oblast from the south, where they are also, guys, very, very close to the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. If you look here, from the closest distance, I would say, is maybe this to here, 5 miles. So less than 10 kilometers to Dnipropetrovsk from the south of the Donetsk Oblast. They are going to just wrap up this entire southern part of this oblast here as things slowly begin to progress out. All right, the final update for today. Well, I have one more, but I'm just going to sort of talk about it. It's not an actual update on my map. The Russian forces have advanced here in the Zaporizhzhia area towards Malatokmak, which will eventually lead to Chernihiv. Just a small advance here, like a tactical advance, but still important because This area should not see Russian movement with its proximity to Zaporizhzhia. It's very open and capable logistics lines leading into the city. This area should be where you see the least Russian movement, and just because it's the shortest distance for Ukrainian logistics, and it's completely open fields. So any Russian progress in this area is rather significant. And then I'm going to talk about this just because everybody wanted me to talk about it. There are reports that Russian forces have crossed into Chernihiv. We actually do have photos, but it's of Russian special forces operating in the region. So I'm not going to consider this territory captured. I actually don't even know exactly where it is on the map. I'm just looking for the geographical barrier because I'm going to relate it to something else that we're seeing in the region as well. Is it up here? Okay, it's something like this. It might actually be here because this might be one of the villages that they moved into. But along the border region here, it's something like this, where you see this river, this Vara River. This area it's like international borders just don't make sense when there's geographical barriers, 20 feet across the international border. So instead of holding this line, just pushing out into this area where there are no Ukrainians anyway, and just making the river the dividing line instead of the border is exactly what the Russians basically did. It's no different than over here in the Kursk incursion, where the Ukrainians ended up pushing into this area because the international border makes no sense militarily when you just have a river right here that you can just back out. Holding this makes absolutely no sense, right? So they just backed out on the river barrier, and so that's in the gray zone now. Same thing over wherever I was looking over here in Chernihiv region, but a lot of people have been asking about that. No, it's not a big deal. Could it turn into something? Potentially. Is it something right now? No, I would just kind of ignore it. Understand that it's going on. All right. I am done with all of my map updates. 30 minutes, boys. 30 minutes, and we got through it. All right. Let's see. What else do I want to talk about today? Go into my articles that I wanted to talk about. Okay. So actually, I guess we'll just talk about the green light that Biden just gave. So yesterday, the Biden administration came forward and gave Ukraine permission to use long range or medium range, short range, all the ranges, Western strike systems on Russian territory. This has been a topic of conversation for quite some time. The Ukrainians have been pushing really hard for it. And I always said that I would not be surprised if it ended up happening. And I also said that even if you gave the Ukrainians the ability to use this a good amount of time ago, when it actually may have made some sort of impact on the battlefield, the Ukrainians don't have the number of weapon systems to make something happen. If you look at the recent Russian strike that we saw 2 days ago, the Russians fired about 120 missiles and about 90 Garand-2 drones into Ukrainian airspace to accomplish very good damage against thermal power plants, some hydroelectric dams, substations, and communications between, electricity transfer points between Europe and Ukraine. That's a lot of missiles. And that is with a Ukrainian air defense network that is wildly degraded, right? But they're still forced to do these large saturation attacks that involve multiple days of dry fires, basically finding where holes in the radar, are located, finding out where Patriot batteries are being positioned to defend specific high-value targets, so on and so forth. And once that all happens, you see this highly coordinated strike that actually achieves a tangible difference on the battlefield. The Ukrainians firing 10, 20, 30 ATACMs might do some material damage, right? They might hit something of high value. They may hit a concentration of troops. They may hit an airbase. They may do something, right? But None of that is going to change the outcome of the war. There is no ability for the Ukrainians to quote unquote, take out the archer, not the arrow sort of thing that they've been talking about. It doesn't even make sense. The U.S. is not going to give them 2,000-kilometer range missiles that they can strike Murmansk in the north of Russia, where Tu-95s take off for these strategic strikes, right? Ukrainian missile systems are not going to be able to attack or target mobile Russian Iskander launch systems, right? The launch platforms that Iskanders move around on. You're not going to be able to target those, right? So you're not going to be able to take out those. The only reason that the West is doing this is to destroy any chance of negotiations in the future. And I've been thinking about this very carefully. I hear some people saying that it's like forcing Trump to continue the war. I don't think that's exactly what it is. I think that it ties Trump's hands. I don't think he has the ability to maybe even maneuver at all in the sort of situation, change his positioning, whatever. I don't think Trump is going to be able to achieve peace. I've talked about this multiple times. He needs to have both the Democrats and Republicans have to be on board. The Democrats are not on board. They also have to have Europe that's on board. They're not. Russia on board. They're not. And Europe on board. They're not. So peace is not really ever going to happen. I never expected negotiations to come forward. All of this talk is just theater in my mind. I don't see any of that happening. And this escalation, this allowance by the West is just the icing on the cake, the sealing the fate of the Ukrainian state, the Ukrainian regime, and probably Ukraine as an idea, really. And that's super unfortunate. I've been pushing for negotiations pretty hard. I don't want to see this war continue for another year or two, but that's what we're going to see now. I don't see any way around this. As soon as those missiles begin to fly, that's what's going to happen. And I really do think that the Russian strike on Monday, on Saturday or Sunday, one of the two, the Russian strike this weekend, I think it was in direct response to the green light being given. I think Russian intelligence understood, because we haven't seen a strategic strike on Ukrainian energy infrastructure for months. I think that the Russians were going easy, trying to leave open the possibility for negotiations. That changed. I think that they basically got the intelligence that the U.S. was going to go ahead and allow this. They were setting it up. They always release this stuff on weekends. If you guys don't know, it always happens on weekends. There's always distractions and stuff going on, so you can make these announcements and it kind of is gone by Monday. So they're giving the go ahead, and now Russia has to do what Russia has to do. This is an actual Russian red line. This is not a this is not a Western red line that they say Russia is a Russian red line. This isn't some Ukrainian line that they've created to cross and, make it some dramatic thing. No, this is a real Russian red line, probably the first one of the war that has really been crossed in a serious manner. I mean, you can talk about Kursk a little bit, but as you can tell, it didn't achieve anything. So it does cross a red line technically, but are you going to overreact to it? No, and that's what I said at the time. This one will require a specific response. I don't think that will come in the direction of NATO at all. I don't think that this is going to lead to World War III at all. I've talked about this multiple times. Russia does not want a war with NATO. NATO really doesn't want a war with Russia. NATO wants to destroy Russia through a proxy, and Russia wants to not be destroyed and beat that proxy, right? That's sort of the idea right now. Exalting this into World War III does not benefit Putin, does not benefit Biden or Trump or the US or Russia or anybody. It doesn't make you money. It doesn't do anything of the sort. So we can accidentally fall into that. But the way I look at this is that this is just further damaging relations, which is not good. This is further damning the Ukraine to its fate now. It's all I can call it as fate. And it won't even change anything on the battlefield. It is truly pathetic. It is incredibly sad. And when you look at it from the Biden administration's perspective, it looks incredibly weak. You didn't allow Ukraine to use these strike systems for months and months and months when they had them, because you were afraid it was going to start a war or whatever excuse you were giving at the time. Because maybe at the time you figured, wow, they have all these missiles, maybe they'll actually do some damage inside of Russia. Now that they don't have any missiles, they're going to go ahead and give them the okay to use them, that it's not going to change anything other than cross that red line. It's the only reason you're doing it, right? So it's weak in that perspective. Either the Biden administration now feels that the consequences of this action are so little that it won't negatively impact them directly, or they are completely out of options and just trying to basically tie Trump's hands before Trump comes into office. But if you look at Trump's administration, there's a bunch of neocons in there still. I mean, it's not like the war was just going to come to an end. Guys, U.S. foreign policy does not change because the president changes. I'm telling you that we are going in a direction, and that direction is going to be pretty consistent. There's going to be different avenues to that same result, but it doesn't really change. So that's pretty much all I have to say on the green light situation. Very, very, very bad news for Ukraine, but nobody really cares about Ukraine. Hey, no barking. No barking, buddy. All right. If you guys have some questions, go ahead and get your questions in. Yeah, the Baltic cable thing. Okay, hold on. Just 1 second, everybody. Go see what's going on. Yeah, sorry. Dog heard the door shut, I think, because I think my girlfriend's home. So, yeah, so... The Baltic cable situation, it's just very light news right now. I'm going to wait to hear about it. But this is the kind of stuff that happens when you start getting into asymmetrical warfare. So yeah. Oh my goodness. They seem to think something's going on down there. Let's see. Even the West admits that this ATACMS is way too late since the battlefront has moved to the West. My goodness, they're barking out there. Bonus, when will we hear from Major Alex? Major Alex, actually, I should have him on for an episode. That's a good request. I'll try to get him on for another episode. Aiden, I gotta know if you're Jewish, nose and ears and setting off alarms. Bro, how do I look Jewish at all? I'm sorry. First off, there is no Jewish look. There are people in certain areas of the world who are Jewish, but most Jews are like European. So I don't know what you're talking about. I am German and Scandinavian, so no, and I do not have a religious affiliation. So I'm sorry. No, I am not Jewish, and I am not paid by anybody, and I will say whatever I want. I talk shit about everybody equally, and if you're doing something stupid, you're going to get it. My God, bro, they are mad. I do a bit. What Jew do you know that's 6'4" and jacked? I'm sorry. No. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. I look German as shit, dude. Blue eyes, red fucking facial hair. I was blonde. Get out of here. And it doesn't matter if I was Jewish, because Jewish is not a bad thing, right? Why does it matter if I'm Jewish or not? I'm not. If I was a Zionist, maybe you could say, "Oh, well, you have, some bad ideas or whatever." But what is 6'4" in centimeters? I don't know, like 180 something centimeters or 190 centimeters. Bro, they are barking out there. I look acidic for sure, man. You guys are. None of that matters at all. You guys should be able to just get past that. It's so weird. Scott, any proof of North Koreans fighting in Ukraine? No, I'll give you an update from last week when there was still no proof. Yeah, nothing has changed. And yet we still haven't seen any Iranian missiles either. So the justification for allowing Ukraine to use these missiles on Russian territory is that North Koreans are now fighting, which may be true, but they're inside of Russia and the Ukrainians are inside of Russia. So even if we do see them, it's not justification by any means. It's just complete falsehood from the start. However, no, there is no proof yet, and there might be in the future, but as of right now, we have not seen any North Koreans, and we have seen no Iranian missiles, but the West has made both of those things fact without evidence. So 193 centimeters. Centimeters are dumb. We go off of feet in this country. 12 inches to a foot, 5,280 feet to a mile. That's how we do it around here, boys. Why do you support Russia as an American? Why do I support Russia as an American? Is me making a map supporting Russia? Is that what you think is supporting Russia? I'm just curious because to me, I'm just providing news. I'm just telling you exactly what's happening. And it's what I've been doing for like 2 years. And I've been pretty accurate that entire time in terms of, since like Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Kursk, the Pokrovsk situation, the deteriorating situation in the south, now the movement in Zaporizhzhia, the overall direction the war is going. I've been more right than all of those Ukraine supporters. So I'm just an American who's providing information to an English-speaking audience that they wouldn't get from mainstream media news. That's what I'm doing. I'm giving you the reality. Now, if you think that makes me pro-Russian, I would say that you might be part of that problem. Now, what my personal biases are, what my personal thoughts are, those are mine. But when you look at my work, I'm just making a map. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't support shitty garbage U.S. foreign policy that destroys my country and doesn't benefit me at all. That's what I don't support. I don't support pointless proxy wars. I don't support supporting genocides in the Middle East. I don't support, using Taiwan against China. I don't support any of that stuff. I think it's garbage foreign policy that is destroying the U.S. hegemony that I live in and that I very much enjoy. That's my big issue. Do you also think that conversations between Schultz and Putin did not go as reported? I believe he is planning to leave NATO and get some cover. No, I don't think that. I think that he's trying to very intensely to prevent a situation that would basically force Germany to send Taurus missiles to Ukraine. I think that that's part of what this ATACMS green light is basically the U.S., starting it just like they did with Abrams. We're going to send these tanks, and then Germany, Britain, everybody else is like, we'll do the same because Daddy said so. So, no, I think he's trying to talk to Putin, trying to prevent that, and he's being called a traitor for it. So, Skies Putin bot confirmed. Sure. Yes, I am. Is Russia worth coming down from the western? Is it worth Russia coming down from the western side of the Oskil from Russian territory to eventually flank the Donbass? Yes. So it's what I talk about. It's the same as the Kharkiv region as the south. So in the south, you have Pokrovsk, which is a major intersection city that basically unlocks the entire east of the country, right? You use these roads to get behind Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, move all around. There's no defenses back here. It's incredibly difficult for the Ukrainians to defend this while also defending this from frontal assaults sort of thing. Once the Russians clear the Oskil, if they do wish to cross somewhere or come down through Russia and approach the city of, down here, Izum. If they end up capturing Izum is no different than Pokrovsk down here in the south. It is probably the biggest achievement of all Ukrainian offensives throughout the entirety of the war, was pushing the Russians out of here, because the Russians would have been in a position to just travel down this road to the backside of Slavyansk and compromise the entire east of the country. So Yes, it does make sense for them to do that, but it will be a large undertaking for it to happen. More probable what is going to happen is the Russians are going to clear this side of the Oskil and then just progress through this direction to Izium. But I think that's going to be much easier for the Ukrainians to defend. So we'll see. We'll see how it works out. Thank you for your question. The brainwashing we've endured in the West is wild. Everything we claim they do has been going on for generations. The Russia hate has got to end. Russia ain't perfect, but man, yeah. Well, it's what happens in any nation that ends up turning sort of fascistic in its mindset and authoritarian in its control, right? You have to have a scapegoat. You have to have something that unifies your population and keeps everybody on the same page. For the Germans, it was the Jews, right? That was what the Germans used in Europe during World War II to sort of blame everything on. It was all their fault. And whether whatever position you take, it's still just an excuse. And that is always what's going to happen. So the only reason for NATO to exist, the only reason for the military industrial complex to continue profiting in Europe is to have a boogeyman. It is to have an enemy, and Russia is that enemy. So yes, you are very right. It does have to end, and it should end. But the allure of being xenophobic to human beings is too great. We love it because it's a natural thing, right? Other people are, at least used to be, dangerous, very dangerous, right? People would come into your village and kill everybody and rape everybody and leave, right? So xenophobia is sort of this innate human quality that larger political ideologies can then use to get everybody on the same page and going in the same direction. And that's what Russophobia is. That's what China, xenophobia, whatever you would call it. It's what the Red Scare was. I mean, whatever you think about communism, you can say that you don't want communism to spread, which is like containment and everything, but the lengths that we went to and the propaganda positions we went to make them seem like baby eating evil people, that's like the propaganda. That's what you have to be careful and watch out for. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your question, man. Appreciate it. Do you believe the claim that Russian troops dressed in Ukrainian uniforms to get inside of Kupiansk? No. I think that the Ukrainian lines are just weak. That's all. That shit is just an excuse. When you're hearing reports like that, oh, this happened, this is how they did it, this, that, and the other, it's all just an excuse for why Ukrainian lines didn't hold. No, I haven't seen Russians wear Ukrainian uniforms a single time throughout this entire conflict. Some military analysis are saying that North Korean special forces sent to Kursk are specifically trained to attack and hold rear positions. Any truth to this? No. We have no idea what brigades have been sent. We have no idea what units are operating, if any. We have no idea if the units are even near Kursk. We don't know if the units are even in Russia. So, no, we have no idea. No, there's no truth to that. Let's see. Question. What does the colorful parrot in your X bio represent? The colorful parrot? Hold on. I got to go to my bio because I don't know what you're talking about. The parrot. Oh, it's a canary. I'm a canary in a coal mine. I do the news. I bring you guys all of the... I give you guys heads up before things are happening. So it's a canary. It's not a parrot. I forgot I even put that in there. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm disappointed Trump didn't come out and condemn Biden's decision. Wouldn't that be the right thing for him to do? Potentially, but the Trump administration was probably going to do the exact same thing. Like I said, guys, foreign policy doesn't change. So pretty sure they were going to allow it maybe not allow it, but continue supporting the war. So it really doesn't make any difference to the Trump campaign's position, and it makes Biden look bad. So, well, they're a group of black. Hold on, let's see. Got a question here, bro. Give your take. In Lima, they put Biden way behind. Today at the G20, people were not looking to talk to him. Something changes in the world. Yep, nope. That he's on his way out, and what it really looks like to me is that he sabotaged a lot of the sort of the plan because they cooed him out. I don't think he wanted to leave. I don't think Jill Biden wanted him to leave. They hate Kamala. Jill and Biden both hate Kamala because Kamala called Biden a racist in the primaries and everything. And they've been like this forever. And Kamala basically got DEI'd into being the vice president during the whole Black Lives Matter thing in 2020. And then after Biden was removed, what it sounds like, and this is just like rumors and stuff like that, but what it sounds like is the Democrats wanted to do a whole primary and put new people forward, and Biden basically just endorsed Kamala as a big. So that's very funny to me, very interesting. I don't know if it's exactly true, but yeah, Biden. I think Biden is not on everybody's nice list right now in terms of especially Europe and stuff like that. Trump does not need Dems or Congress to change Ukraine policy. He just needs to stop giving money and weapons and intel and Ukraine losses. Then he can blame Biden. The only issue with that is then Trump gets blamed for what ends up happening to Ukraine. You can't just stop giving that stuff to them or Ukraine collapses. You got to remember, there are geopolitical ramifications for every single action any leader makes, right? Yes, let's end the war in Gaza. Let's end the genocide. I'm about it. I would be so happy if that happened, right? But from an Israeli perspective, from a U.S. perspective, you have to remember that there are consequences for every single action that you undertake. So let's say Israel pulled out of Gaza, stopped fighting Hezbollah, ties with Iran went back to a stable position. What happens in Israel? You have to have elections, and you're coming off of one of the most traumatic and unsettling periods politically for Israel, right? And Netanyahu is looking like he might go to jail. He's still popular, but he's only popular because he's assassinating people and the war is still going. So there are these huge ramifications. There could be major instability if, the Israelis pull out of Gaza and things go back to normal. Normal is not always a good thing, right? There may be major geostrategic implications for the U.S. if Iran becomes much stronger in the Middle East, right? There are major implications, geostrategic implications for the U.S. and NATO if Russia captures a huge chunk of Ukraine, massive economic value, and the geostrategic influence of Russia in Europe will forever change the face of Europe, right? So you have to remember that they can't just do things always. Like you can't just go forward and say, I'm not giving you any more weapons, because then Trump is going to be blamed for Ukraine losing, right? The Republicans are going to be blamed for it. They can't let that happen to the party. Geostrategically, there's probably major consequences of that action. They can't allow that to happen. So yeah, it's kind of like you're stuck. But you're right. If he wanted to end it, he could just end it. Okay, I'm going to talk about, well, do I actually want to read this? Yeah, I guess I'll just read this so you guys can kind of get the Russian perspective on what they're talking about when it comes to this stuff. So, do this. So this is from the AP. Moscow warns the U.S. over allowing Ukraine to hit Russian soil with longer-range weapons. Peskov, obviously. The Kremlin warned Monday that President Joe Biden's decision to let Ukraine strike targets inside of Russia with U.S.-supplied longer-range missiles adds fuel to the fire of the war and would escalate international tensions even higher. So this is the most This is the biggest aspect of this. It's not so much fuel to the fire of the war. That's already going. It's not changing. It's in the exact same position. This announcement came at a very specific time because it doesn't change anything, right? It doesn't change the direction of the war. Nobody's even really that upset. It's kind of like old news, even though it just happened. Biden's shift in policy added an uncertain new factor to the conflict. That's why he did it. On the eve of the 1,000-day milestone since Russia began its full-scale invasion. It also came as Russian ballistic missiles with cluster munitions attacked a residential area of Sumy in northern Ukraine, killing 11 people and injuring 84 others. It's just like such random things that they just attach onto. So the reason why you gave them the missiles is because Russia launched a missile into Ukraine. They've been doing that since 2022. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Another missile barrage sparked apartment fires in south port of Odessa, killing at least 10 people. That was a Patriot missile, I believe, that we saw. If that was the same one. Ukraine's interior minister said. Washington is easing limits on what Ukraine can strike with its American-made Army tactical missile system, or ATACMS. U.S. officials told the press, the Associated Press on Sunday, after months of ruling out such a move over fears of escalating the conflict and bringing about direct confrontation between Russia and NATO. So why did that change? Why did that change all of a sudden? You could say desperation, but desperation doesn't make a lot of sense because it doesn't change anything. So they're still going to be desperate after this, right? That doesn't change. The only thing you can say is either you're trying to prevent Trump from ending the war if you think he's going to, which I don't, or you think that this action, while not threatening enough to cause a world war now, because the Ukrainians do not have the proper weapon systems, you do think that it will force the war to continue to the point that you want it to. End of story for me. I think that that's exactly what's happening. We got another question here. Do you have a take on why Xi and Putin never called Trump to congratulate him? Because the US and China and Russia are basically at war with each other right now. Relations are so bad. Why would they call and congratulate them? Trump is talking about an economic war with Xi, so they're enemies, and the U.S. is currently in a proxy war against Putin, so they're enemies. Doesn't make any sense. There's no reason that they would call them. All right, guys. I think that's where I'm going to wrap it up. That takes us to an hour. Thank you all so much for coming in and talking today. I had a lot of fun on this live stream. I will probably be doing, I will definitely be doing another one Wednesday night. So if you guys are able to turn into the late Wednesday stream, be sure to do so. But without further ado, I think that that's it for me. Be sure to go and like and subscribe if you guys have not already done that. Leave a comment. It helps me with the algorithm. It helps me a ton, actually. So if you guys don't mind doing that, I'll be super grateful. And be sure to go check out the Patreon episode that was just uploaded. Thank you guys so much and have a fantastic day. I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.